welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, December 19th. We're coming up to, it's going to be winter soon. Well, it's cold enough to be winter now, but we, you know what we do on Mondays? We bring in James McCool, Mondays with McCool. James, the co-author with me of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Coming off a 10-game NFL Sunday slate where I made a couple $100. I won on FanDuel, lost on Draftkings, but didn't lose that much on Draftkings. And really just came down to did you play Zay Jones or not? And I did play Zay Jones, so I won.
That's good. I also had some Zay Jones. I made some adjustments to my model, Jordan. So
your real model, not the fake attractiveness model.
No, actually the fake attractiveness model.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the fake one. So Trevor Lawrence, he's the outlier.
Well, no. See, so I did a little bit more back testing, and I found that the length of a player's hair has a lot to do with their upside.
What happened to Justin Herbert?
Well, see, that's the thing. When Justin Herbert has longer hair, he has higher upside.
Did he cut his hair yesterday?
No, he didn't find his ceiling last night. But Trevor Lawrence, remember, he's ugly as sin, but he does have long hair. And so I input that into the model, and so I ended up with the Trevor Lawrence lineup. And that lineup did pretty well. So I also made a couple $100. If I would have had a couple things break my way, probably significantly more, but it is what it is, man. We take a winning week.
I'm assuming that lineup is it was a Lawrence, Zay, Engram, Lamb, like that type of lineup, right?
It was Lawrence, Kirk, Zay, and CeeDee Lamb. Yes.
Okay, so then who'd you play in the tight end spot?
Okonkwo.
Okay, so you did that. You flipped it around. Okay.
Yeah, I had a secondary correlation of Okonkwo and Allen, which was boilerplate, but fine. It doesn't matter when I have a low enough owned Jaguar stock.
You see the people in the YouTube chat. Feel free to hit that thumbs up button. You know how much we like those. Suki Singh says that all the snowflakes from Buffalo full in my lineups. Okay. Joe Mack, good morning. Matt Mears, good morning. James Aguirre. I had Lawrence doubles and Hurts doubles and won a ham sandwich. That's what James Aguirre said. Well, I mean, if you're playing large field GPPs, I mean, you need better than just. I got the bright stack. Do you got everything around it? Like to me, the first off, from an ownership perspective, in the Millie, the Chargers Titans game really got, if you want to use the term, steamed.
Mm-hmm.
I had that as the highest owned game, but not to the extent that it was. So like I did play that game. I played 14 lineups. I played 2 Herbert lineups and I played 2 Tannehill lineups.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Mike Williams would actually be higher owned than Keenan Allen. Like that 30% Mike Williams, 28% Keenan Allen. I mean, I played Mike Williams in like 5 or 6 lineups. I wouldn't have not done that had I known that he'd be actually high. I'm playing Mike Williams, assuming that he's leverage off of Keenan Allen,
right? And
it turns out everyone did that, or people doubled with Herbert because Herbert was 25% owned, and I had him at like 16% owned. Mm-hmm. So it's like this entire game. Same for Henry. Like I had Henry at 24, and he came in at 35. I had Henry as one of the highest owned running backs, but not to this extent.
Yeah.
So like to me, I was off. I was right directionally, but not proportionally. And the same could be said with Miles Sanders and Isaiah Pacheco. Like Isaiah Pacheco, I bumped up to 18% owned. And Miles Sanders, I bumped up to 16% owned. Like they came in way higher than that. I mean, I bumped them up because I knew that they were going to be higher than what is being projected owned wise, but 28% Sanders. I mean, I had 0 of them because I mean he didn't even project that well. I mean, he's one of those guys where, yeah, I see the ceiling there, but from a from a GPP perspective, let me bring all my players back in the pool. Like Miles Sanders was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th on my list. I would have played David Montgomery over him.
Yeah, I mean, Miles Sanders, he was right there. I had him projected well. I had him projected as the 5th best running back on the slate, but
What, raw points or point per dollar?
At raw points.
Okay,
he only projected for like.
What did you have Sanders at? Well, you had him 5th in raw points
at 15.5. I didn't project running backs high, very, very high this week.
Okay, Sanders, I have my aggregate is 14.72, but that's still like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's like 12th on the list.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at points per dollar.
Well, now I'm more concerned about raw points. How many points? I mean, if you had him at 15.5 and one of the top, I mean, what were you projecting some of these up? What were we projecting? Henry, Jacobs, Eckler, Kamara, Connor, Stevenson. What were we projecting these guys at?
So I had Stevenson at 20. He was the best point per dollar value on the slate for me.
Okay.
I had Derrick Henry at like 18, which was based on some really bad weeks recently where it's just super up and down. I had Austin Eckler at 18, where his workload basically doesn't necessitate him as a high projected play unless he's going to score the touchdowns. I had Josh Jacobs as the top overall median play at 24. So it was just like after that, it was basically like Miles Sanders, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco, David Montgomery. All those guys are basically the same play between like 13.5, 15.5 points.
Okay, because my aggregate had Kamara and Connor at 18 each.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, like, directionally, it's mostly the same. It just depends on, one, the rushing and passing stuff in the red zone. Like, that's the main reason why I had Miles Sanders above those guys, because Philadelphia was projected for 2+ rushing touchdowns on the week. So with them having by far the largest rushing touchdown expectation, he's going to get a boost there that the other guys just aren't. Like Kamara, for instance, he projected for me for about 15, but New Orleans had the highest passing touchdown expectation on the week, not the highest rushing touchdown expectation. So that dings him really bad. Plus, he doesn't get all the goal line work because they hate him for whatever reason. So there were just a lot of things. In terms of running backs this week, I just didn't have running backs projected all that well. Wide receivers have projected significantly better for me for the last couple weeks as the league has been a bit more pass heavy. So the only running backs that are really projecting well for me right now are going to be Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry, and that's pretty much it right now. Those guys are going to project well, and Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey will obviously project well. But it's hard for me to get projections high on running backs right now. And it ends up being directionally, which ones do I want to take? And most of them are just projecting in the same area right now.
Okay, but that doesn't mean a reason why Miles Sanders should be 28%.
No.
I mean, take a look at this running back ownership. I mean, Henry 35, Sanders 28, Pacheco 25, Kamara 20, Zonovan Knight 19, Pollard 14, McKinnon 11. And he's the best to ever do it. James Conner 9, Latavius Murray 7. Like I had, like the running backs in my pool. I mean, Josh Jacobs at 5% is a joke. I want to play as much of him as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So I played a lot of these. Like I played Henry in like one or two in the Chargers lineups.
Yeah.
Right. Or across from Keenan Allen or something. Yeah. Okay. I played 0 Sanders. I played like 2 lineups with Pacheco. Right, but I did play. I played Kamara plus London.
So did I.
As a correlation.
Yeah,
I would play like Zonovan Knight, Latavius Murray.
I'm really mad about that, by the way, because I didn't have Zonovan Knight in my projection pool at first because some sources have him as Bam Knight and some sources have him as Zonovan Knight. So there's actually a naming convention issue in my projection set that didn't load him in at first. And when I was building, before a subscriber noticed that, I had Latavius Murray in my Jaguars stack. And then after that, Zonovan Knight projected for 2 points better. And I was like, I'll just go with Zonovan Knight. And, if I keep Latavius Murray in, it's an extra like 7K or something like that. And
because he scored 22 more points.
Yeah, he crushed. And I like Latavius Murray. In terms of value, he was fine. Like he projected pretty well in terms of value.
I played him on FanDuel.
On FanDuel?
Yeah.
Was he really?
That's why I
cheap on
did well
FanDuel?
yesterday. I played. I in my FanDuel lineup. I had Zay Jones and Latavius Murray
It's a good lineup.
and Jalen Hurts at quarterback. So, and obviously,
Yeah, Zay Jones. As long as we're talking about point per dollar values, I had Zay Jones as the 9th best overall wide receiver yesterday.
raw point wise.
Raw points. Yeah.
Well, let me take a look at that. Zay is even on the. Yeah, no, he's not even close. He's like 18th or something.
Yeah, I had him project for 15.2.
Right, 13.32 aggregate. Yeah. If you had him at 15 point, you should have gotten him in like all your lineups.
Yeah, he was a good play yesterday. I had the Jaguars. I had the Jaguars top overall stack, and people kept asking me like, "Well, what about the Dallas defense?" Like, bro, the Dallas defense just gave up like 400 yards to Davis Mills,
right?
And the other backup quarterback for the Texans. Like, I don't care about the Cowboys defense.
Right. The only play that I made sure to only have, I had one. I think I had one Mahomes lineup. That's the only lineup that had Chris Moore in it.
I thought Chris Moore was the worst play on the slate yesterday, and that was before
ownership. We're talking about ownership wise.
I mean, So in terms of ownership, because I didn't even know that he was going to be that highly owned. He ended up 35% owned, I think, in the Wildcat, which is a lot of ownership.
30.7% owned in the Millie.
I
played him in cash. I mean, I played him in both of my cash lineups.
Yeah, you play him in cash. 100%.
Right. But I'm just saying at that ownership for 4,200. Why?
Like you're telling me that 30% of people decided to play a third string wide receiver on the worst team in football as 14-point underdogs. He projected for 9 fantasy points,
which is fine from a median perspective.
In cash?
Yeah.
I'm not going to chase a 12 target game for Christmas. Like, come on. What are we doing? Oh, there's the boy. There he is. We forgot to lock my door.
He's chasing Chris Moore.
He's chasing Chris Moore targets. All right, give me 1 sec. I'm going to turn off my camera here.
Oh my god.
And James is dead right now. Okay. If you got any questions, feel free to post them in the YouTube chat. Hit that thumbs up button. Here, James is back.
I'm back. Yeah, that was funny. Anyway, yeah, so Zay Jones projected very, very well. The horror story of my projections yesterday for wide receivers was Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who I had projected very well as well, and he did not do as well. But Ryan Tannehill getting hurt right away, like that entire game just sucked.
Yeah, I mean, I played Robert Woods in some lineups, so that was about just as bad.
I liked the Tennessee side. I liked the Tennessee side more than the Chargers side.
For that whole game bust. I mean, other than Henry, that whole game busted, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that the way that I looked at that game, I was fine with having Derrick Henry across from a Charger stack. But I also thought that, like, based on ownership, why wouldn't I just play Austin Eckler and have it?
Well, I did that too.
Yeah. For me, because I only have 3 lineups, right? Like, so I have to really think about the way that I build out that leverage. It was like I could build a Charger stack, which would have been something like Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, or Herbert, Mike Williams, and Gerald Everett, and bring it back with Derrick Henry. And I'm fine with that. Like, that works fine. But then you're kind of struggling with salary for the rest of it. And then that's how people get on plays like Chris Moore. Or I can play the Tennessee side. And the Tennessee side has been passing along the red zone, and Ryan Tannehill has not been terrible for the price. Like, it made a lot of sense, especially with the narrowed target tree between basically just Woods, Okonkwo, and Westbrook-Ikhine. So I can do that and then have a similarly high price running back in Austin Eckler, who comes in at like 9% owned, has the same ceiling as Henry. I thought that was a really good decision to make yesterday. But then, of course, Derrick Henry ends up having a Derrick Henry game, and life is hard.
Yeah, I think I played a lineup that looked like that. I also played a bunch of Mike Evans, and that was going great in the first quarter, and then Brady just turned the ball over 4 times in the third quarter or something.
Yeah, I really liked that Bengals game. I did. At one point I had a Bengal or a Tampa Bay Cincinnati stack, but it was expensive. I didn't think it was really worth it based on the price. Hard game to stack. Because if you're going to stack that game, you almost had to overstack it because it was so expensive. The only way that those guys get there is if it's a total shootout. So
right, yeah. Here's my second to worst lineup: Tannehill, Woods, Okonkwo with Eckler as the run back.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yep, except with Westbrook-Ikhine instead of Robert Woods.
But this 99.5, that wasn't even my worst lineup. Here's my worst lineup. I went for the Mac Jones stack.
Oh, that's pretty gross. Yep.
Right, and then I Mac Jones plus Jacoby Myers plus Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs as the run back.
Yeah.
Played Donovan Knight and the Jets defense. Jamar Chase and Mike Evans across from each other, and Isaiah Pacheco was a one-off.
It's good. It's not bad, except for
ownership-wise, fine. I mean, yeah, but this is that. Yeah, I'm not playing a ton of Mac Jones. I mean, my best lineup is the Mahomes lineup.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying when I see Mike Williams at 30%, I go, damn.
That's gross.
Right.
It's really gross. My worst lineup was my Tannehill lineup. Scored 95. It's Tannehill, Eckler, Jacobs, Westbrook-Ikhine, Okonkwo. Bring it back with Eckler, and then that one I had a secondary of Olave and London. Garrett Wilson went off.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, CeeDee Lamb. Right. I mean, like I was building, like ownership wise, I was fine with these lineups.
Yeah, that was fine.
Mike Evans as a one-off. Coming out of the early games, I loved this lineup. This was the lineup I loved the most, right? Because after the early games, I have Lawrence, Jones, Ingram, Lamb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I got Jacobs and Aguilar across from each other. I got Turner in the Arizona defense, and I got Mike Evans as a one-off. Let's go. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
Didn't do it. Didn't do it.
I almost had it. If it was a touchdown from Lawrence to Kirk to win it, I'd probably go into those last games feeling really, really good.
Right. You still would have lost. Right.
Say that again.
You still would have lost, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that one, I finished 175. If I get that, then Kirk ends up getting past his 100-yard bonus. It's probably another 20-something points sitting with Stevenson, Okonkwo, and Allen to go with the Patriots defense. It was pretty good. What I needed specifically was just Latavius Murray over Zonovan Knight. And like, I'm right there.
Right.
Tilting one.
I think it was very sharp to take the risk and play Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh yeah. At 5% owned too. That was
right.
Awesome.
That's the same thing I did with Jacobs. It's like I knew this ownership is coming down because he was on the injury report, and then the Renfro and Waller are back, and the Patriots whatever defense, and the Raiders aren't a very good team anymore. I mean, like, so I'm like, yeah, but Josh Jacobs could touch the ball 35 times this game, and if people aren't going to play him, and I'll play him over like Henry's 8,000. Henry's 35% owned. Jacobs is 5% owned.
Yeah, literally the same play, just massive difference in ownership.
Right,
massive difference.
So that's that's why I didn't play Steve. Like I was going to switch my Connor lineups to Stevenson because I thought Connor would be like 8% owned as it is, and Connor plays like almost every snap for the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do I take Connor or do I take Stevenson at not much lower ownership? It's like, no, I'll take Connor. I'll take my 95% snap share, and against the Broncos with Colt McCoy at quarterback. Yeah, that's kind of the problem by playing like guys like Bam Knight. Now I know that he got injured, but a Zach Wilson led Jets offense is probably not going to be very efficient.
No, I mean, and I did have a Jet stack too, and that stack was.
Oh, you played Wilson?
I did play Wilson. Yeah,
you played Zach Wilson plus Garrett Wilson plus who?
Elijah Moore.
Plus Elijah Moore. Okay.
Brought it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown 5% owned, and puts up
after being 40% owned at similar prices because the Jets. It's Sauce Gardner, right?
Whatever, man.
You got to be afraid of the sauce.
I am now afraid of the sauce, I guess. I thought that was a really good spot. I mean, the Jets, people have been just like rock hard over attacking the Lions defense with passing attacks for weeks. And then all of a sudden, Zach Wilson starts and people are just completely off. Like we've seen, people wanted to play much worse quarterbacks against the Lions defense this year. And people didn't want to play Zach Wilson. Comes in at 4% owned. I really liked that stack, actually.
I think Eric Beinforth said on the yesterday's morning show. We do a bunch of shows in the morning here on RotoGrinders. Eric Beinforth was talking about maybe playing Zach Wilson. The thing is, the key to playing Zach Wilson in DFS is you don't watch him.
No, absolutely not. No.
Because if you watch, I saw someone plays on the red zone. I'm like, good thing I didn't play any Jets other than Bam Knight. And I'm like, okay, at least Bam Knight will touch the ball until he gets injured, and then that doesn't matter anymore.
No.
Isn't to me, James, in this day and age of the NFL, the most tilting thing watching Red Zone, the most tilting thing in DFS are goal line rushes.
Yep, by a long shot.
Your goal line rush for when you have not the running back that's in. Because that, I would say number 2 on the tilt meter is having Joe Mixon and him getting stuffed at the 1. Like that's number 2. But number 1 is having Joe Mixon and seeing Samaje Perine get in at the 1. Right? To me, that's more tilting, where it's like, oh, my guy could get an pretty easy touchdown if he was just in the game like he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? So when you see the Jets on the goal line, you're like, okay, let's see number 27 or whatever his number is. And it's like 32. Michael Carter's in. Well, this is not.
I imagine that's how everyone who has ever watched Kamara play feels all the time.
Why is David Johnson in on third downs? What is going on?
Can you imagine being a Saints fan? Can you imagine being a Saints fan and watching that and just like feeling it deep in your bones that you're never going to experience happiness in your life? Just the worst.
How do they do? How do you have Alvin Kamara, who you would have to say arguably is the best pass catching running back in one of, maybe McCaffrey's 1, but Kamara's 2. And then he doesn't play passing. He doesn't play 3rd and 7s.
Doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. And like every single time that they decide, oh yeah, 3rd down, we're going to put in Mark Ingram. An angel loses its wings. I don't understand.
Mark Ingram wasn't even in. They just said, no, we're just going to replace Ingram with David Johnson. The corpse of David Johnson.
I did not even know that David Johnson was still in the league.
Yeah, he's on the Saints practice squad.
Well, and yesterday he was on the Saints field during 3rd down.
Right, because Dwayne Washington was injured. That's why.
It doesn't make any sense. It is again confirming the fact that if DFS players ran at least one team in the league, it would probably be improved in some way.
I think in the past 5 weeks, Derrick Henry has a higher target share than Alvin Kamara.
He does, absolutely. Yeah, he has like 17% target share or something.
And Kamara is like, he just runs the ball on 1st and 2nd down. What world is this?
I don't understand. As the head coach of the Saints, I don't even know who's coaching the Saints anymore. As the head coach of the Saints, I don't know how you're in the Saints organization, and maybe you haven't watched any of what Alvin Kamara can do on 3rd down. I don't. How was he prepped?
Watch whatever he can do when he catches the ball. I mean, play him as a receiver. I can fine. 3rd down, you want to bring in David Johnson and Alvin and have Alvin Kamara out wide or in the slot or something.
Put him in the slot.
He's their best. He's probably the best receiver.
Yeah. I mean,
here's the key. Here's not to keep on complaining about it. The key is that when you play DFS, you shouldn't be playing based on what you think is what they should do. It's what they're most likely gonna do. And this was the first week that Ingram is out.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, Kamara's gonna get that work, and he didn't. So like, don't project him for that anymore.
No.
Like they're gonna put in a crash test stuff. All the running backs could be out. Yet on 3rd and 9,
it would be
they're gonna bring in a mannequin from Bloomingdale's who doesn't even exist anymore. And they're going to put that. It's not going to move, but it's going to be there. and it's not going to be Alvin Kamara. So don't bother projecting it anymore.
I mean, this is why I only had him projected for like 14.
Well, that's most people had him for a higher target share.
Yeah, I don't know why though.
Well, because Ingram's out. Okay, fine, let's go.
Ingram doesn't catch.
Yeah, but neither does Kamara, apparently.
Right. that's a point. That's a point. One of the biggest edges that you can have as a DFS player is just not playing people based on what you want to happen.
Right.
Play
the
people
same reason why Isaiah
Pacheco
Pacheco typically doesn't project well, because like the Chiefs do not throw the ball to him.
No, he rushes fine. He had 86 yards on the ground. That's great, but he only had one catch.
Right. Jerick McKinnon's going to come in and do all the heavy,
and then get 3 50-yard receptions for touchdowns, and actually end up with 4 touchdowns on 3 touches for the day. Because that's what Jerick McKinnon does.
That's what he does.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon is the Christian Watson of running backs. All they do is score touchdowns. That's literally it.
And people played Jacoby Myers, and he threw an interception, or he threw a fumble. What was that?
That was maybe the worst play I've ever seen. And then like all the guys who are coming out after the fact, and like Jacoby Myers like, oh, it's all on me, and Mac Jones is like, oh, it's all on me, and it's like, no, guys, just literally point fingers at the coaching staff, because why did that happen in the first place? Like, why on earth could it ever be a situation where the game is tied and you have decided as a coaching staff that you're going to do a hook and ladder backyard BS play instead of anything else?
They ran the ball. That wasn't a hook and ladder. They ran the ball.
No, and then Ramondre Stevenson threw it back as if it was a hook and ladder.
Right. No, he ran the ball, and then he pitched it off to Jacoby Myers. And then Jacoby Myers turned around and threw it to Mac Jones. Like, what is he going to do? And then Mac Jones, the other Jones, caught the ball and then ran him over.
Yep,
Mac Jones had no shot. He just ran him over.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to expect?
That's the thing. Like, I cannot understand. I played football for a long time. I do not think that it's possible that Ramondre Stevenson just willy-nilly decided to throw that back. I think the coach
and Chat the same thing. So they went rogue.
I don't think they went rogue. I think that had to have been something that the coaching staff said, hey, we're going to try to win the game, because players don't just do that. Players don't just do that.
Especially the Jacoby Myers pass. I can understand Stevenson rushing, about to get tackled, and goes, oh, I see you here. Let me pitch it off to you so you can continue running or something like that. But to throw it all the way back to the only person back there was Mac Jones. It's not like they had skill.
What's going to do? Is he going to catch the ball and throw a forward pass now? Like, that's not how this works.
Right. You can't do that. Right. So that's that.
You want to give the ball to Mac Jones, who runs like a 6'8" 40? Like, why would you throw it back?
What's a worse play from yesterday? Was it that play, or was it the fact that Terry McLaurin doesn't know the rules?
Apparently, Terry McLaurin asked the ref if he was good, and the ref
who does that? I've been an official, okay, not a football official, but a baseball umpire and a soccer referee. Like, you can't ask if you're like the pitcher can't ask if he's in the mound area or something like.
No. Running wide receivers do make sure that they are aligned correctly. Whenever you see a wide receiver stick his hand up to the ref and say this, like, wideouts do that pretty much every snap. They make sure that they are aligned correctly. That's a football.
But do the referees acknowledge
yes,
that?
They say they nod yes. They say yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. Like I said, in the NFL, I don't know. But
yep, they acknowledge. So Terry McLaurin, absolutely within his right, said that he checked and made sure, and the ref said yes. And then after the play, they called illegal formation on him.
Because basically, the illegal formation is the fact that they didn't have enough people on the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Because the two tight ends are off, the two guys on the other side of the line are offset, and the guy in the slot to go up and down has to be offset. So they don't have enough guys on the line of scrimmage. And Terry McLaurin wasn't completely on the line.
Yeah. And
even though he asked the referees, like, I'm on the line, right?
Yep.
Why do they have to ask them? Why can't they just look? I mean, like, what's...
Well, I mean, they asked...
Is it that hard to be on the line? Or It's just that they're far enough away that they just want to they don't want to be offside because then
it's
too
an
far
insurance
off.
policy, right? Like all it is just like formality of like every single wideout is taught since middle school to just check with the ref. If you are the Z wide receiver, if you are the outside wide receiver, check with the ref. Make sure that you're online. That's every single wide receiver since middle school. So that McLaurin was doing what he does, and the ref apparently lied to him and said yes. And that's on the league, man. That is absolutely on the league. That's not Terry McLaurin's problem.
Technically, it's technically supposed to be on the line. I mean,
technically, I guess.
I just didn't realize they do that they do that all the time.
Every single play.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's not something that's in the rule. That's not something that like.
No, it's formality. It's formality.
Right. It's that this is not a officially. You're not going to find it in the rule book or anything.
Yeah. It's and the reason for it is, I mean, like you said, like the inline, the slot receiver and the tight ends, those guys who are inline, they know where they're supposed to be. And
right, obviously.
Outside guys, like since they are outside that far, they always check with the ref and make sure they're online. And I highly doubt that McLaurin is not proficient enough at this to do that every single play and then be offsides there. Like he checked to make sure. So that's on the refs, man. That's not on him.
Just that I've never. I'm trying to think of in baseball. There's anything where you would ask the umpire something before a play, before a pitch, before a throw, and
I don't think you do it in baseball. The only thing I can think of is in the batter's box, just making sure the guys are set. But I don't know that much about.
Yeah, or am I a batter that doesn't really that is in a weird stance that
yeah.
Is he in the batter's box, like outside of the line or something like that? Is this fun? Like, and if I was doing the plate, I would say, yeah, you're in the line, be fine with it. Right. But I wouldn't say nothing. And then when he hits the ball, call him out because he's outside of the batter's box.
Right.
Like it just, I'm trying to think of where that would even exist because like on things that hasn't happened yet, I would, if a pitcher would ask me, like, because you see this in the Little League a lot. People trying to do the hidden ball trick.
Yeah.
Not realizing what the rules are because they watch movies that don't realize what every hidden ball trick you've seen in a major motion picture has been a balk because the pitcher can't feint having the ball on the mound.
Right.
That's a balk. Right. So he has to be away from 18 feet away from the rubber, which would be the mound. But I mean, in a lot of Little Leagues, there's no mound. There's just the rubber in the middle of dirt. So like if I was the base umpire and the pitcher was like 6 feet away from the rubber and asked me, he said, am I considered on the mound? Like, I don't know what I would, I mean, it's never happened, but I'm just like, I wouldn't, you can't answer that. It's the same thing as you can't answer, did a guy touch a base?
Right.
Like you either have to appeal or don't appeal. Like you can't ask me beforehand. The other team, the team that scored or whatever, can't. Did I miss second base? Did I touch second base or not? Like you'll find out if they appeal or not. Like as long as you touch first base, you're on the base path. So like if you missed all the other bases and came home, I'm going to count you as a run unless I knew you missed second and third, but the other team has to appeal.
Right.
Right. It's like it's one of those things where you would never answer. It's like I know exactly what it is, but I can't answer without you actually committing to an appeal or run back if you think that it's that big of a deal. So I've never refereed football, so like that's why it's really weird that the referee would say yes, you're on the line, and then he immediately threw a flag.
Yeah.
It's not like he thought about it. It's like, yeah, you're on the line. Snap, flag.
There's just nothing to say about it. I think
there's nothing in the rule. But the point that I'm making is that there's nothing in the rules.
Right. No, there's not.
It's really from a technicality standpoint. That's on Terry McLaurin.
From a technicality standpoint, sure. From a formality standpoint, it's something that is just there are so many things in NFL that are just like unwritten rules. And so many things that are so subjective. And this is going to come down to something that I'm sure there's going to be coverage of it. it's going to come down to, oh, well, like you said, technically this is on Terry McLaurin to make sure that he's right. And like, even if the ref says yes, he should just make sure that he's right. But it's just going to be another stupid thing where NFL rules just are fly by wire and they make up the rule book every single night. Because there's no way, like, you know how sometimes they'll refer to the ref in New York. I don't even remember his name, but they'll ask him like, hey, what's the rule surrounding this? And he'll be like, oh, well, per the rule book, blah, 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 blah. The ball can only be thrown if it's blue and has 6 laces. And it's like, that's not in the rule book. There's no, you're making that up. And I think they do that a lot. I think they do it just for the purpose of the product.
Also, was it just me or that Raiders touchdown at the end of the game?
That was not it.
I don't know. I saw it the on red zone, and I'm like, this is obviously going to be overturned. Like you could, like his like a good 2 inches of his toe is in the white, unless it's an optical illusion. Like his foot his second foot is out of bounds. So clearly. I'm like, okay, so what are the Raiders going to do now? And then they're like, no, they're kicking the extra point. What?
I don't know.
That was a touchdown. What?
It doesn't make any sense, dude. Like it truly doesn't.
Did we miss something? Did they explain it? Because I didn't hear the explanation of like, oh, that was a bad. His foot was in, but that was a bad angle. I was the explanation just there wasn't enough to overturn it.
Yeah, not enough to overturn it. Yeah.
What I was looking at should have been enough to overturn it. How is that not enough to overturn it?
It doesn't make any sense, dude. I don't know.
Half his foot was out of bounds.
I think that it's conspiracy to keep the Belichick tree alive. That's what I think it is. I think that it's conspiracy to not get Josh McDaniels fired, even though the Raiders came out and said that they literally cannot afford to fire Josh McDaniels, or they would.
Which is always hilarious. A sign of confidence, right? You're here. It's like the only reason I'm here is because it's too costly to buy out my contract.
That's so sad.
Didn't someone? I saw a tweet yesterday, the day before, that NFL teams are paying out like $800 million in contracts for coaches that don't even coach anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. I stop doubling. I think that the contracts at this point have gone too far in every major sport. These baseball contracts.
No, I'm on the player's side. Let the player.
No.
Look at this baseball contract now. Anytime I see a tweet, oh, so-and-so, some creative player signing a 2-year contract for $74 million. I go, what? What?
No.
Wasn't it like Daniel Robinson re-signed with the Mets for like $12 million a year?
Somebody argued with me the other day because Andrew Benintendi got a 5-year, $75 million contract. This is $15 million a year for Andrew Benintendi.
Who's not a bad player.
No, but come on, man. Like that.
No, but I'm for the players.
No. But
those owners for as much money as possible.
This frustrates me from a like logistical and like relative standpoint of how can like when does this stop? Like when does the train end up off the tracks because we're ending up doing this kind of stuff with good but not great players? Andrew Benintendi is a fine 6-hole hitter. All right, he's okay. He hits well enough. He can steal some bases. Like
I think your point, James, is that they're giving guys $10 to $15 million a year that are only slightly better than AAA ball players that are getting.
Yes, and
$350,000 a year.
I don't think that I have a problem with the size of the contract because Joey Gallo got 1 year for $11 million. All right, and Joey Gallo, whatever, like 1 year for $11 million is fine. I think that's fine. 5 years at $15 million is not fine. Take 2 years off of that. Take $30 million of that and put it into the pool for the minor leaguers. Like. That contract.
But that's what the contracts are, but you have to get away from the length of the deal. That baseball players are just like, pay me X amount.
Yeah,
they're not staying for 14 years, for 10 years. They're just like, I'm guaranteed that amount of money for the rest of my baseball career, and whoever wants to trade for me, that's what my price is. Yeah. And now they've taken care of it for the rest of their baseball career.
Sure.
Like that's what these baseball players are trying to do. I mean, they're not going like they're not in the position of like, I'll sign a 2-year contract and see what happens. It's like, if I could make $400 million for the next 10 years, give me that, and then I'm happy. And then feel free to do. I'll go to any team, and it's almost like they're signing with Major League Baseball. They're not signing with an actual team.
Right. But that's exactly the reason why I think that they should be cutting off the top of these contracts and bringing it into the minor leagues, because the minor leagues, I'm not going to get on a full soapbox here, but like these minor league players are treated like trash. And like the system from basically as soon as you get out of high school, you get drafted out of high school and then you go into poverty for 3 years until you're in the league. That sucks, man. That should not be
99% of people don't make it.
Yeah, well, but you should still. I mean, if you get drafted out of high school, you're one of the top 5% of players in the nation, 3%, like a really, really high amount.
Yeah, but you're gonna make $300 a week.
Yeah,
that's what it is. You're gonna get a stipend. You're not even gonna make money. You're gonna get a stipend.
It's a stipend, right? You don't even get lodging paid for it. You don't get meals paid for it. That's kind of the problem that I have with it is you're still dedicating yourself to this sport. Still dedicating yourself to the major leagues. And I'm not even saying that these players should be making a lot of money. They should be making like $1,000 a week, probably. You're top. You're like the top.
In AAA they are. In AAA they are.
Sure, yeah, but like to be able, there are a lot of players, and this comes back to my hatred of college sports, which is getting better now with the way they're handling players being paid. But like, there are a lot of players that get put into this position, and if you're making $300 a week, like you might not even have the opportunity to make it up through the minor leagues, because now you have to take that $300 a week, and you're just screwed because you can't economically afford to continue doing this. You can't economically afford to be able to continue to refine your craft and become better at this to the point where you can make it to AAA. Like there's a lot of players that likely have been shot out of this league simply because you cannot make enough money as a minor leaguer in single A or whatever to even experience your true potential. And I think that sucks. Even in the lower brackets of like single A, double A, whatever. If single A could be making $1,000 a week, double A $2,000 a week, triple A $3,000 a week, that's sweat off the brow of the contracts that are placed in these baseball contracts. And I just think that could be better spent. Take $30 million of just Andrew Benintendi's contract and give it into the minor leagues, and that's enough to sustain for a year.
Aren't you describing what our entire American economy is?
Yeah, man, and it pisses me off every day.
Right? Because what you're describing is not just baseball; it's pretty much everything else also.
And I'm a benefit of the American economy, right? Like I live a very good life because of the American economy, but I still think that there should be better ways to handle the situations of like the top 5% of people doing something rather than just the 1%. Just extend it a couple percentage points down, and I'll get off my soapbox. But that's one of the things that frustrates me about pro sports for sure.
Well, but I mean, it frustrates me about the American economy also. I mean, like the reason why I make courses, me and you, Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. We got the Advanced Players course. Feel free to go pick that up with James's Excel tools. Mm-hmm. Is that I always call myself, I'm an ethical capitalist.
Sure. Okay.
So like me personally, I think there should be a lot more social programs and universal health care and all the trappings that should take care of everyone in this country. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I want to make money is so I can continue doing what I want to do to make money.
Right.
Doing what I want. It's not about making the most amount of money. It comes back to that $50,000 to $75,000 a year type of thing. It's like if I could just do content like this and play DFS, right? You build your models, type like that. Like I don't need $1 million a year.
Yep.
I just need enough that I don't have to worry about going and doing anything else other than this, right? So it's a peace of mind thing. The thing is that 99% of this country doesn't have that luxury. Mm-hmm. So when people would come to what someone like new or someone that wants to do a YouTube channel or a podcast, and they go, what's your advice? How could I create something as successful as you? I said, Said you got to just go and do it.
Yep.
And you're going to do it for no money for 5 years.
Yep.
For not, but you have to put in a ton of time. And they're like, well, I have 2 jobs already, and I got this or whatever. I'm like, well, you got to find time. Like, that's
hard.
Right. You have to find time to do this in order for it to potentially turn into something where it replaces the thing that you didn't want to do in the first place. But the thing is that most people don't have that time.
Yep. And,
right.
And absolutely. Here's my path, right? I wrote for free at RotoGrinders for a year, right? I wrote on the blog,
right?
And then I won some awards and I got picked up at Daily Roto. I wrote for $25 an article over at Daily Roto for a while. That was fun. That was good. And then I got to DraftKings where I wrote for 5 cents a word, which sounds just depressing, but that's what I did. And I dedicated a lot of time to this. Remember, this is me with a full-time job. I'm still doing this stuff. Took me like 3-4 years of climbing up that ladder. Eventually got through all that stuff and then started pay dirt. And now pay dirt is my main income, right? Like it's the main thing I do. I make about $85,000 a year with it, and I'm happy with that. But it took me 4 years of basically making $600 a month doing what I love to do to be able to be in a position now where I can support my family with what I do.
Right. So you're the Andrew Benintendi of the DFS industry.
I like to think I'm a little bit better than Benintendi, but yeah, I mean, I basically am above average in plenty of things. I'm not an Aaron Judge, right? But I don't want to be an Aaron Judge. I'm okay being an Andrew Benintendi, right? I'm okay being productive and solid.
So why you give $35,000 of that to the guys that are now getting 5 cents a word at DK Nation?
Well, because I am paying people now, actually, because I have enough money to do it.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. Like that's the thing. Like do something that you love to the point where you can then offer up a platform to other people. That's my goal at pay dirt. Is to be able to give something that's like affordable to everybody, and then also eventually be able to bring people in that want to start in this industry. Like there's a writer that I have right now for NBA. His name is Camden. And he came to me when I said that I was gonna start having some NBA writers, and he was like, "Look, I just want to try to get into this industry. I just want to be able to see if I can do it." I'm like, "All right, cool. You sound like I did when I wanted to start out." So now he's writing some NBA articles for me. He does a good job, and hopefully he can turn that into something more. And being able to offer that kind of stuff, like that's definitely something that you want to be able to do once you have gotten there yourself. But you can't get there if you can't get there yourself. And there's a lot of people that are probably people who are way better than I am at what I do, that just don't economically have the ability to put themselves in my position, or don't have the time, or don't have like the ability to push themselves towards this goal. And that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. That's the American economy for sure.
They're not going to replace me.
No, they're not. No. Well, because you're a total nit, and you're willing to just do all of this basically for free so that you can continue to sustain your lifestyle.
Well, I mean, but the thing is that like playing DFS, like in 2015, it's just like I'm going to spend 16 hours a day studying this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Over and over. But it was on the basis that I was working from home as it is with my own digital marketing agency. Mm-hmm. So I was the boss.
Yep.
Right. So as long as I got all my client work done, it didn't matter what. I mean, I went to meetings, did phone calls or whatever. But most in a 10 to 12 hour day in front of a computer, like I spent 8 of it doing DFS,
yep.
right? Stuff and whatever, because I could get everything done in 4 hours for everything else. But most people aren't in that position.
Yeah.
So when people say that, it's like, oh, I did the hard work, right? Which I did do the hard work, but I was also in a position of privilege where I had the opportunity to do that. So I know when the point that I make sometimes on shows, on this show, DFS pregame show, when I'm like, you know what you should do? You should go back and you should watch every piece of content I've ever done. And people go, well, that's like 700 hours of content. And I go, yeah, watch it all. They go, well, how do I have time to watch it all? Like some of my I'm trying. what I'm trying to say is not necessarily that you should watch it all, but it's like, what are you doing that you're not doing?
Right.
And you should be filling up all of the time, all of it, with that. And if you're like, well, I don't want to fill up all of it with that, well, then don't complain when you're not good at it.
Right.
Right. Now, what's all? Now, for me, all, I could spend 16 hours. I mean, that's literally what I did back in 2015, 2016. Wake up in the morning and watch 8 hours of old RotoGrinders videos, like in a row. Answering some emails because I'm still doing work stuff, but I'm leaving it on. And then, I go to sleep and I wake up and I do that again and again and again and again. Yeah. Maybe for other people, like, you have 2 hours of that time. So what are you doing? What are you doing with that 2 hours of time? Like, your 2 hours of time is I'm gonna sit back and watch the NBA games. It's like, what would be better? You don't need to watch the NBA games. You should spend the time from 8 to 10 instead of watching the Knicks or whatever into watching strategy videos on how to get better at playing daily fantasy sports.
If that's your goal, right?
If that's your goal, right? If this is entertainment, then don't. Who cares? Do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. And then that is where you pay for RotoGrinders, or you pay for Paydirt, or you pay for whatever, because we have done that. We've done all of that already. So you can watch the next game, and you can use our stuff to just give you the action that you want. It's all about goals. It's all about goals.
So if you want to pick up the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, either the first Masterclass or the Advanced Players course, which comes with the custom Microsoft Excel tools, go to theoryofdfs.com. Daniel Hutchings makes a good point. Honestly, I think a big part of some people's struggles is that they've never gone deep into anything and they don't understand the value of in-depth work and practice. That's a very good way of putting it, because it's something that I don't understand. Like, the reverse is what I don't understand. I'm assuming Daniel is probably Nerdy Tenors similar to, I'm more similar to him, and we're more similar to him, right? I'm not going in and I'm learning how to, do a ton of computer programming work. But it's like, but my entire life has been, oh, I enjoyed this thing, down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like, just like if I don't like it, like, I don't even care about it. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to bother with, like, oh, there's this thing that's on and whatever. It's like, yeah, if it's not worth me obsessing over it for like 16 hours a day, then it's not worth me even considering at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, I'm so used to, like, if you're looking to solve a problem that you really, really want to solve, or you're really, really interested in, then, like, why wouldn't you read every poker book? Like 2002, 2003, I was like, I'm just going to read every poker book. It's like, well, which ones? I'm like, why not everyone?
Right.
Like, this,
that's like a larger life thing, though, right?
Right.
Of, like, people focus, man, we are getting philosophical today. People focus a lot of energy on things that just do not matter to them. And it is intrinsically a waste of time, a waste of energy. Because if
isn't what Dirty, no, with Dirty, unless you're trying to get to the point, it's like, no, what Daniel's saying is that people don't understand the value of in-depth work. Like, for instance, like in school, right? In English class, I could pass the test with Cliff's notes.
Right.
Right.
Because you never needed to go in depth because you didn't care that much. And
because I didn't care that much. But in another subject, I would never even consider the Cliff's notes because I would want everything I could possibly
right.
And want. It had nothing to do with me passing the test. It's like, if it just had to be me passing the test, right? Then I would do what I do in DFS. What's the least amount of work for the most amount of return?
Yep.
That I could get? Can I get a 92 by doing 3 minutes of studying?
Then
I'll get a 92 over getting a 98 by doing any like more work.
Right.
But in this scenario, this is more the fact of maybe my disconnect with a lot of people is that, like, I don't understand that to me, when you say goals, it's like I play DFS because I enjoy intellectual challenges that reward me with money, right? That I could sit and go, I'm gonna be smarter than you, and the reward for being smart is financial, and it's enough of a financial reward that I don't even have to do anything else.
Right. All you have to do is be smarter than other people.
All I have to do is be smarter than other people. And people that, in order to be smarter than other people, I want to learn everything. Like everything that's possible. Always be learning.
Yep.
So there's no such thing as a shortcut to me at all.
Yep. But that's what I'm getting to here.
But but the point is that if you're not doing that, then you are playing casual. Like to me, there's no spectrum. Like it's a distinct breaking point of like, if you're not doing that, then you are playing recreationally. And you're like, how could I be playing recreationally? I listen to 4 hours of content a day, and I do like, but you're not thinking about the game in any amount of depth or detail. How do I get? You're thinking in terms of, how do I get through today? You're thinking of, how do I get to my meal today? Who cares about saving up for the future? Like, how do I get dinner today? And it's like,
I think
I'm looking like, how do you cook and how do you hunt and stuff? So I don't have to think in terms of a day-to-day type of thing.
Yeah, I think I'll push back a little bit on that, though, because I think that a lot of people who are listening to 4 or 5 hours of shows and like absorbing all of the content, I think that they are actively trying to learn how to cook. I think that they are actively trying to learn how to hunt and gather and do those kind of things, right? I don't think that that is simply going to the seminar so that you can get today's meal. Because I do think that a lot of content is nowadays focused a lot on how to make good decisions, a good amount of it. Like there's definitely content out there that is just today's meal, but I think there's a good amount of content that is how to go and find the ingredients for the meal and cook it yourself. I think that where people mess up is that they are going to the wrong seminar. I think that there's a lot of people who are trying to absorb knowledge that is not necessarily fruitful forward when it comes to the things that you need to learn how to do for DFS and to be able to cook your own meals and do that kind of stuff. And that just comes down to trusting the people that are putting out the content, trusting that the content is good, and also at the very core of this, understanding that today's meal might not come. What you are trying to figure out is how to make sure that you have consistent meals in the future. So people can't dedicate to it. It's not a long-term mindset. That's what I think the biggest issue is for a lot of people. I think the largest delineation between a casual player and a pro player, or not even a pro player, but a casual player and somebody who does this for secondary income or for a large goal, is that they just can't think long-term. Whenever I do coaching and I open up with, okay, well, do you want to make secondary income with this? Yeah. Okay, well, you understand that we're making that goal for a year from now, right? Yeah, okay. And then I don't get another coaching session after.
Right. 3 weeks later, it's like, why isn't this thing working?
Yeah. So that's what I think the biggest disconnect is. I think people dedicate themselves to their ability. I think the DFS is an incredibly addicting game to the people who want to be able to be good at it. But I think that a lot of people will fail to understand the long-term implications of the decisions that they're making. And I think a lot of people will also fail to be able to separate the noise away from the valuable information that you could be studying and just listening to people who are only looking for short-term gains. And there are a lot of them.
But I think that the Venn diagram is very close to the people that don't understand basic statistical concepts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yesterday I was watching conversation in another Discord. I didn't participate or anything, but for cash games in NFL, especially this late in the season, the differences between I could show you 10 different cash type lineups from yesterday, and they'd all be, I'd be like, okay, that's reasonable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one's reasonable. That one's reasonable. That one's reasonable. And people will spend hours, days arguing over this 2v2. Should you have played this guy? Should you have played that guy? Without realizing that the concept of what you're doing is extremely small edges.
Yeah.
Extremely. So the difference, when people want to go this cash lineup or that cash lineup, and one lineup outperformed the other by 37 points, and go, I should have played the Zay Jones lineup. I shouldn't have played Herbert in cash. I shouldn't have played Dulcich at tight end. I go, this is what I'm going to do. Okay? Instead of let's talking about players and lineups, I'm going to give you a die. Okay? Obviously, it's going to be a big die because it needs a lot of sides. Okay? This die that I'm giving you has numbers 1 to 50. Okay? Now, I'm going to roll a die, same amount of sides, that's 2 to 51. Okay? What are the chances that my die, from 2 to 51, I have numbers on it, you have 1 to 50? Which is the better die to have, which we're playing who gets the highest number? Mine, right? Because it's 2 to 51 rather than 1 to 50. But it's only by what, 2%?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's 50 sides, and I could go up 1 point higher than you. So if I rolled and then you rolled, would it be a shock if you rolled a higher number than mine, even though my die goes up to 51? No, because look how minute. Like, you're not going to be shocked. Like, most of it's you wouldn't even be able to tell that the die have different numbers on them for like hundreds and thousands of rolls. Right? The difference between 1 to 50 and 2 to 51. Let's say a third person had 3 to 52.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all three of us rolled the die each time. And who won each time? You would, if you didn't know that the numbers were one offset off from each other, you probably would not even know for thousands of rolls that one die was slightly more advantageous than the other die. But now you're comparing 3 cash lineups to each other.
Right.
So but once you get that statistical concept, then you go, why the hell are we arguing so much over these small things? And we could put a number on these things, and why don't I'll just go and play whatever my projected optimal median lineup is, and just like, wow, it took me 30 seconds. Because worst case scenario, I'm rolling the die that's slightly off. And hopefully there's enough people rolling the die that's -5 to 45. And over the course of time, I make money. Like that's, once you break it down into that type of statistical concept, and also just even what projections are, right? When we go, oh, should you have played Henry or Josh Jacobs? And if just looking at the projection, you go, oh, well, there's a difference between 1 or 2 or whatever. Think in terms of those die. Mm-hmm. Go, do I play Jamar Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown? And you go, well, Jamar Chase is obviously a better play. He projects for like 2 points higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I go, yeah, that's like me that Amon-Ra St. Brown is rolling a die from 1 to 50. And Jamar Chase is rolling a die from 4 to 55. That's it. So imagine you roll those 2 50-sided dies. Would you be shocked if Amon-Ra St. Brown got a higher score than Jamar Chase, even though over the course of thousands, he'd be slightly better on average? So, like, when you think in those terms, like, you're never in the mode of, like, who's a better play? What's going to happen? It's like, wow, the probabilities of like 40 of these players are like this close to each other. And you go, well, one guy's going to be way high owned and one guy's going to be way low owned. But really, the differences between most of these players are marginal.
And that's why
the lower owned one, like that's the macro concept. But the types of people that don't think in depth, they see this past week and they go, why didn't I play Zay Jones over Jacoby Myers? Or what they look and they go, I should have played Godwin over Keenan Allen. And I go, why? I said, Well, Godwin did better than Keenan Allen. I said, but Keenan Allen projected for 1.5 higher than Godwin. I said, yeah, but that didn't happen. I said, do you understand what 1.5 points? What are we even arguing over? Like, the differences between Keenan Allen and Chris Godwin were small.
Yeah.
But the results could be wide.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the concept. So you're never in the mindset of thinking like for the next meal. Like, that's what I mean by people thinking too much in the next meal.
Yep.
Of like, okay, what is it going to be tonight? And it's like, no, why don't you just understand the macro concept so you could just show up to a slate 30 minutes beforehand and go, well, this group of players are all about the same. You don't treat one median point as some dramatic thing. And then once you start thinking like that, you go, well, what do the players' names even matter at this point? Right? And then you go, why don't I just build a lineup that has a number of this and a number of that? And as long as they're not the players aren't negatively correlated, I'll just play that line. Like, now once you start thinking like that, now you've become a much better DFS player. But to get from point A to point B requires you to actually think in depth about what DFS is as a game. That you're taking this defense is good against that thing, against, like, people go down that road and go, well, why don't we just distill this to the fact that Derrick Henry versus Josh Jacobs is like 2 die rolls. One is 1 to 50 and one is 2 to 51. And once you think in those terms, like, you go, well, even with Henry and Jacobs, it's more like one die has 1 to 100 and the other die has 2 to 101. It's like, so it's even less of a difference. And you go, well, once you put it into that perspective.
And then you think to yourself, in that perspective, which one pays me more if they
more
finish?
Money, right? And you go, well, Josh Jacobs is going to be 5% owned and Henry's going to be 35% owned. But their difference is a 1% difference on a 100-sided die roll. And you go, once you think in terms of that, now you're not going, well, the Chargers have this defense and the Jacobs has an injury, and like, dude, you already have the numbers in front of you. Like, the numbers show that, like, one's going to be 7 times more than the other. I wouldn't have known that he was 7 times. I knew he'd be about 3 times higher owned. And you go, well, they're about the same, right? And then you look at Austin Eckler and you go, he's a little bit worse, but not that much. It's instead of a 1 to 100 die roll, it's a -3 to 97 die roll. That's not that dramatic of a difference. So play Austin Eckler and stuff like. But those are the macro things that turning them into. Once you think in that mindset, then you start asking much better questions. Then you have much better conversations rather than why do you like this guy and why do you like that guy? So, like, to me, that's the overall. Once you start thinking in depth about what DFS is, this is what studying 16 hours a day will get you towards. Of, like, once you need to get to that point first. Anything you do past it without getting to that point is, to me, worthless. So those are what I consider to be the stupid questions. Of, like, I could tell just from the question that a person has not reached the point in which they understand daily fantasy sports as a game.
Right.
So there's nothing that I could explain to you. Like, if you don't understand just even the concept of expected value, just the concept, not how it applies to DFS even, but just what is expected value? What is the probability of an event, the odds you're getting paid on a bet? Is it higher or lower than the actual probability of it happening? If you don't understand that concept, it's hard. How do you explain anything in DFS? Because, right? Then people are like, yeah, I'll lay -110 on a coin flip. And it's like, what are you, an idiot? Right? We'll get the Super Bowl. James, there'll be the Super Bowl this year. People will bet -102 on heads.
I know.
Right? The thing is that even worse, it'll be -102 on heads, -104 on tails, and people say that tails is the sharp side. But I'm highlighting what happens when you don't understand macro concepts. You start going down this rabbit hole of now, because you don't understand one thing, you misunderstand 17 other things in the process. And then you start thinking in terms of reverse line movement and trap lines and the fact that books want even action, like all this stuff that is all garbage because you don't understand the bare basics of like, well, how sports books operate, like that type of thing, how DFS operates. And that's where you get down to people asking, should I play this guy or that guy? It's like once you, if you're still in that this guy or that guy stage, like I don't know how I could help you anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to get to the point where you understand DFS as a game. You may not understand it as detailed because there's 8 million different variables. It's actually way harder than sports betting, right? Way harder because there's so many variables, and then you have to deal with other people's lineups and what their choices are. But the thing is, you have to get past the fact that what you're doing on a daily basis in NBA or a weekly basis in NFL is not predicting player outcomes. That all you're doing is trying to get to the probabilities of different people versus what other people are going to own them at.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you get down to that, then you see statistically a lot of the stuff is very close to one another.
Yep.
And once it's very close to one another, then like what are you doing other than just arranging numbers better than other people? Right?
Yeah. Nailed it.
Daniel also says there are also a fair number of people who fully understand basic statistics mathematically speaking, but haven't internalized what it actually means to ride the variance train on an emotional level. That's true also. Right?
Yeah.
They don't like people that truly, there are people that either don't understand variance at all or people that know intellectually but have never experienced it. And if you played poker for a long time, DFS variance is like that on crack.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so like people can't even do it in poker, and I could do it. And poker to me is easy. I've had 7 losing sessions in a row. I've had, it seems like in one session I've gotten 4 outed and 1 outed 14 times.
Yeah.
Right. And go, wow, I'm the unluckiest person in the world. And it's like, that's variance. I've had sessions where it seems like I'm getting aces like every other round. And flopping sets every time I get them. And it's like, that's poker. But DFS variance, especially for GPPs, like people really do, like poker variance has nothing on DFS. I mean, it's not, you're not even in the same galaxy.
It's really hard for people to look at people, at humans, and understand that variance is within their range of outcomes. You can look at a pair of cards and understand that they're cards and that variance happens because it's an inanimate object. But when you look at, Luka Doncic, and you're like, oh, this guy's a walking triple-double. And then one night he has 21, 6, and 5 and only puts up 40 fantasy points. And then you tilt your face off and you're like, oh, I should have played LeBron. Or last night, Nikola Jokic finishes with like 35 and 27 or something. And people are like, oh, I should have played him instead of LeBron. And it's like, the same medians, man. And it's
right.
just is what it is.
Going through the YouTube chat a little bit. But yeah, the variance in like I try. I exaggerate stuff on purpose. So I want people.
Yeah.
I'd rather people overboard. And I do from a variance standpoint. I'm not sure if it's true, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was. That if you would have played in GPP, and I'm talking about just in large field GPPs, if you were to play every single large field GPP there ever was in DFS, I mean ever, from the start of FanDuel, Draft Street,
anything,
whatever, all the early, I mean obviously there weren't that many large field way back then. If you played every contest ever on DraftKings or FanDuel, and Yahoo and whoever that had a field size of 50,000 or more.
Yeah.
Ever. In every sport, any slate, showdown, otherwise, everything. Till every turbo slate, everything. As long as it was a 50,000 entry field or more. You played all of them. And your ROI would not be within one standard deviation of its true ROI.
Yep. Yeah. And Nerdy Tenor has simmed that out for himself.
Okay. That there are many times that are people if you would have played every contest ever like that, and if your current ROI was like 7%, 30%, like it's like a 30% chance that we wouldn't even know who you are today.
Right.
Because you would have been broke.
Right.
Right. So like there are people that are the top of the industry now on the rankings that 5 years ago they had a 30% chance of never making it to today.
Yep.
Right. And they just happened to make it today. And then there was another 30% of people that went broke that may be actually better and have a higher ROI than the best players of today. Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because those people who made it once and experienced their higher ROI once, then are considered the best players forever. And
right.
It never matters.
Well, there's also a lot of
ROI
people that did that once and are actually losing play.
Yeah, and are actually not very good. But
actually have a negative ROI. Like there are people that have won a Millie Maker and are actually lifetime losers. They have a negative ROI.
Which is incredible, by the way. But I digress. Neither here nor there.
Right. But that's how much, that's what I mean by how much variance there is in DFS, even compared to poker, which has high variance. So like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm used to poker variance. It's like you do DFS variance. If you're playing large field GPPs, like you're going to like, it still boggles my mind to just, this is why I highlight it when I say that in large field GPPs, when I played, now I'm focusing a lot on the smaller stuff. Like you'd lose 90 to 92% of slates. And they go, really? You lose 92%? Yeah, but last year I made $140,000.
Yeah.
They go, how do you make $140,000 losing 92% of the time? It's like, well, the 8% of the time that I win a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like that's how you should be playing. Like, so it's a matter of like, yeah. In a baseball, in 180 slates of baseball, you're probably going to lose 170 of them, right? But playing in a way where the 10 that you win, 1 or 2 of them are for $100,000.
Yep.
Right, and that's it. So you could go 3 months, 4 months, a full season, and be like, "Wow, my chart is just down, and then go, what am I doing wrong?" It's like you're doing nothing. You could be the best play. Like this is what I tell people as an exaggerated thing. I've been playing NBA for what has it been? A month and a half, 6 weeks. And here's my results. And it's like all down like this. I go, it said, you know what? You could be the best DFS player in the entire world. Go, what do you mean? It said, what you're showing me doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
It's like this past 6 weeks, I mean, this could be the graph of the greatest DFS player ever. Said, yeah, but I'm losing for 6 weeks. I said, dude, in NBA, I've lost for 4 months.
Yep.
Right. And then win 50,000. And then it goes, and now I'm up 20,000 on the year or something like that's what that's, if you can't get that concept, like, I don't know how you're going to get better at DFS. If you don't get that, the macro of that. It's not, well, how do I build lineups? Like that's secondary. You need to get these macro concepts. You need to get the concepts from the first course. This is why when people ask, like, can I just go to the advanced players course? I've been playing for 5 years and I could use some Excel tools or whatever. It's like, be really sure that the first course, the 15-hour masterclass, how to think like a professional DFS player. Thinking these concepts you need to get first. Because then once you start adding stuff up, how do you make good decisions if you don't understand variance, if you don't understand standard deviation, what a range of outcomes is, what a distribution curve is. Like, if you don't get that, like, I don't know how you build upon, and you're constantly going to just be like, just guessing and second guessing and then going on tilt and then entering content willy-nilly. Maybe I should play this. Maybe I should play that. Not knowing the differences between, well, playing these field sizes versus those field sizes versus these short slates versus these large slates. Like, dude, you need to get the macro stuff first. And then once you get all the macro stuff, then I have no problem having the conversations about all the nuances.
Yep.
The small things, but people tend to gravitate to those small, like they're worried about home away splits in NFL. And I go, well, they don't matter. It's like, what do you mean they don't matter? This guy in the past 6 games, whatever. It's like the fact that you're saying in the past 6 games means you don't understand statistical concepts from them in the macro perspective, right? When people, but in a Zoom call, so not to call them out or anything. You always want to study stuff, but a lot of stuff is just what showdown winners of the Island Game Showdown lineups look like for this season. So the past 12 weeks, 13 weeks, and he showed the construction types, and I go, what does this matter? He goes, well, I want to see what types of lineups are more likely to be first. I said, but all you have is you have 36 slates of the winners, and the winning lineup may not even be a plus EV lineup. So what it's like, well, 36 is better than nothing. I go, you're right. 36 is better than nothing. And it's like, you know what sample size you need? 36,000.
I would almost argue that 36 is actually worse than nothing.
Is that right? Because you're going to come to a conclusion it doesn't matter.
I would argue that if you are going off of that you should just be using nothing.
Right. But the thing is that I don't mind talking to those types of people because it's like, okay, you're trying to study. I see what you're doing, but you've missed a macro point of what is the sample size? What is this information showing? Now, it would have been better to go, I said, why don't you study the top 0.1% of lineups instead of just the winning lineup? And I said, how about this? Instead of studying any of the winning lineups, why don't you study the lineups of winning players?
Right.
Instead, and go, what for each slate? And then I go to him. I said, well, on this slate from 3 weeks ago, there was a pricing error, which made this lineup construction more odd. You're not going to get the context of all of these things. It's going to be weighted too much. Because you're only looking at 36 of them. If you had 36,000, and he was like, well, how do I get, there hasn't been 36,000. I said, that's the macro point. The macro point is that, dude, the sample size of this are so small that doing any type of this type of work, you're not only going to get, not going to get conclusions, you may get faulty ones, right? Just like you said, it may actually be worse than that. So the better way to do it is to simulate the games and play the slate out 100,000 times. And he goes, well, I don't have the ability to do that. He said, well, that would be a more precise way of doing so. But just simply understanding that a 36 slate size is not that's the whole thing what I mentioned about variance. Oh, I've been doing this for 6 weeks. I go, come back to me after 6 years. And they go, 6 years? So I'm not going to know whether or not I'm a really good player for 6 years. It's like, dude, I've been playing for 7.5 years, and my ROI is still not within one standard deviation of its true ROI. So it's quite possible. It's not unlikely. It's not likely, but it's a non-zero. It's maybe 5 to 10% of the time. It turns out that for the past 7.5 years, I've been playing unprofitably. Right? I've made money every year for 7 years. Right? I'm going to get a 1099 this year also, 8th fiscal year in a row. It's quite possible that I've actually been playing badly and gotten lucky enough that I'm profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing for 7.5 years. So when you're come back to me after 6 years, that, I'm not saying to actually come back to me after 6 years, but you need to understand that looking at 6 weeks worth of data, of results, especially if you're playing the largest contests, is you might as well be looking at one. You might as well, what are you looking at that point?
Yeah.
Now, if you're playing 100-mans, obviously the smaller the field. If you're playing cash games, if you're playing double ups, and you have a 28% win rate in double ups over 6 weeks, you're probably doing something wrong. Right? Over 6 weeks of daily play, like you're playing NBA. So you have 40 slates. And you're only cashing in double ups 30% of the time. Like that's far enough where you're probably doing something wrong. And the same way that if you're winning at like a 75% rate, that's not going to be sustainable, but you're probably doing something right after 40 or 50 slates.
Right.
But most of the time, you're going to be somewhere in the 45 to 55% range. And you're going to be like, well, I'm only cashing 48% of the time instead of 54 or 55. What am I doing wrong? Said that variance. I mean, that could mean anything at that point, right? In cash games. And then once you start to get to the larger fields and the GPPs, it's like, dude, the difference of 1 point could mean the difference of your your ROI being positive or negative for a 5-year period. I mean, that's the point. Like, dude, 1 point away from the milli is a 950,000 or a 850,000 gap, right? Let's say you were down $500,000 at that point. Simply one extra point, a reception. Yeah. I mean, the difference of you being profitable for a 5-year period or not. Now, that's an extreme example, but let's take if it was 100,000 versus 40,000, because we have those like on the NBA or something, large field. You come in second instead of first. That's $60,000.
Yeah, that's literally me right now.
Right. That's one point could be that. So when you understand that variance could be that, like, dude, what you have to play much longer. You have to. This is why I say study instead of looking at your results. Studying winning, profitable players, not people that have profited on a slate, but just a group of people that are like they're profitable in NBA.
Yeah,
let me study their lineups. What do their lineups look like compared to my lineups? Right? Who did they play a lot of? Who did I play a lot of? What types of lineups? What's the projection of their lineups versus the ownership of their lineups? And just you could spend 15 minutes a day after every slate, the next morning, just looking at that and just going. Don't think in terms of why. Well, why did they do this over that? Just to compare. And if you look and you go, yeah, I built lineups very similar to their lineups. Okay, then didn't matter if you lost all your money that slate. Like most likely you're playing well. And if you see yourself significantly off, now you could spend another 15 minutes to investigate why these winning players played these types of lineups and you played these types of lineups. Maybe you were playing way too contrarian. Maybe you were playing way too chalky for the contest type. Maybe you got a projection wrong. Maybe you got ownership wrong.
But you'll figure it out if you look for like 20 minutes. Right.
That's more useful than looking at your own results and going, well, in the past 30 slates, I've done X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. It's like, but who are you comparing it to? Like, is that good or bad? You only have 30 slates, right? And then you go, well, I'm going to look at my results over 300 slates. I go, you only have 300 slates. And then you go, well, I'm going to look over my results for 3,000 slates. You know what I'm going to say? You only have 3,000 slates. I mean, like these are still small sample sizes. So in order to compare small sample sizes, what's the most best way, instead of in a vacuum, just compare it to other people's, mm-hmm. Right? So just like that would be more useful than determining like, should I play the Zay Jones cash lineup or the Josh Jacobs cash lineup? Like, dude, these are all like rolling 100-sided dice with 1 point being different. Like, what's there to learn? Now, if you want to look at what a better thing to do, look at the best cash player lineups and go, what choices did they make?
Yep.
It's like you played X lineup, and most of the people that you respect and that are profitable cash players did not play this 2v2 instead. You go, and then you can figure out why they did it and you did. Like, maybe your projections were off, maybe something like that. But a lot of times you'll find that even in cash games, you could look at 10 different respected, profitable cash game lineups, players, and they will have different lineups. And your lineup will look like a mesh of all of them.
And that's
like, we were all 2v2s or 3v3s off from each other. The results went whatever way they went. And then you go, well, what do I do differently? I go, nothing. It's just that fucking variance. That's it. Right? That's like, maybe you should, if everyone is playing like that in the contest that you're in, maybe you should stop playing those contests. If everyone is a 2v2 or 3v3 off of the projected optimal lineup and everyone's within 1 point of each other from a median standpoint, like maybe you should just not play cash anymore or find weaker opponents.
Yep. Absolutely.
Long episode today.
What a good rant. What a good rant. That was great.
People, there are some people that like my rants, and most of the time I think people hate my rants.
No, if people listen all the way through this episode, which, hit or miss, the people listen all the way through, but it was really good information. Really good one.
I feel like I'm yelling at people most of the time.
You should be. Some people should be yelled at.
I'm trying to teach. But you teach people over at paydirt_DFS?
I do. Paydirt_DFS on Twitter and paydirtdfs.com over at the site, and have a lot of really cool things. I've been reformatting a lot of the Excel embeds into HTML tables so that they are a little more consistent and a little bit nicer to look at and much easier for me to upload. So been doing a lot of that work. Hopefully by the end of the week, we have all that kind of stuff done. But yeah, come over, hang out, join the Discord. It's free to join, and you can hear me talk about a whole bunch of different things.
Trevor asks, do any of the RG model builders use some of their own hunches to affect the numbers? Or do they simply plug in fantasy points from what the model tells them? Well, that's not how models are built. But no, they were not used hunches. Right.
And the people who are using hunches, you shouldn't listen to them.
Right. You should what you should do, Trevor, is get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, because we have an entire chapter that essentially explains how models are built. Right? It's the entire chapter 3. We call it player selection, but really it's a statistics. It's 2 hours of me and James going over what predictive power is, right?
Mm-hmm.
What correlations are, how do you weigh things in a model that matters? So it's like, this guy on Wednesdays, when it's a full moon, scores 4 more rebounds than anyone. Like, dude, that has no predictive power, right? Like, good, right? That's the point. So it's a matter of like your hunches. Oh, it's this thing. There's a way to measure that. So models will measure that and then account for that information to get a fantasy point range of outcomes based on that. They don't include hunches of any type. If it has no predictive power, it won't be weighed.
Right.
That's the whole point. And then you back test constantly to see how those things change over time. And it's never going to change majorly over time, but it may change here and there, right? Ballpark factor in MLB, that'll change over time, here and there, right? Right. But James, there's no hunches in your models.
No, nothing except for the attractiveness portion. Just add in that long hair part. But.
Right. The attract is that a plugin? Is that an add-on?
Yeah. It's a weighted global variable that I added on. It's what we call a bolt-on in the modeling industry.
Do you do your own personalized attract? Do you have the James McCool attractiveness variable, or can I customize it? Will you give me pictures of all the players and then I rate them and then you weight my rate? Because maybe I find Trevor Lawrence to be more attractive. So, but you don't. So that's really technically for the attractiveness model, you are introducing hunches.
Well, no, because let's be honest with this. I'm a professional and you're not. So I know you should just trust my attractiveness model rather than what yours is. Yours isn't as trained as mine.
Right. Mine, I have much lower standards.
Right. There you go.
Right.
Don't tell your wife I said that.
Okay, no, theoryofdfs.com. We got plenty of stuff on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel today, NBA, NFL. We got Monday Night Football, obviously. We got NFL content out the ass for the rest of the week. Remember, main slate is on Saturday on Christmas Eve, but there's still like a 3 or 4 game slate on Sunday. So I'll primarily be covering the Saturday slate, but we will have shows for each. So hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. And I'll see you tomorrow answering your DFS strategy questions or ranting at you about DFS strategy or whatever. Trying to get you into shape. I'm trying to teach you. I'm like your drill sergeant. Do the work. Let's all make some money. And I'll see you tomorrow. another edition of the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.